All right, let's do it.
Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Alicia Purdy. And Alicia and I are going to talk about the fact that the city of Albany in New York is a sanctuary city. And hi, Alicia, how are you doing?
Hey, Cynthia. Great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, not only is Albany a sanctuary city, but before he left, Governor Cuomo declared New York State a sanctuary state. So, it's a little bit, not that.
It's terrifying.
So, over the course of the past number of years, what, in your opinion, what changes have you seen?
Well, you and I are residents in the city of Albany. I'm
Right.
a lifelong New Yorker, and I grew up in Greene County, and it's definitely a different vibe out there because it doesn't feel as sanctuary, even though, like you said, Andrew Cuomo made New York a sanctuary state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it doesn't feel like it in certain parts of New York. It just doesn't. It feels like same old New York. It feels like I said, I grew up in Greene County. Still feels like Greene County. Um, but Albany, so this changes aren't maybe in every place in New York. And so sometimes New Yorkers feel like it doesn't affect them because it's not everywhere. It's not felt everywhere. But in Albany City, we're the capital city in New York State, the shift is it is magnitudinous. Um, just yesterday, and this is just a small example, these things do happen all over the place, but they have not been in Albany. And I drive everywhere in the city of Albany. And yesterday I was at a red light over on Livingston Avenue, and migrants approached my car and they were trying to sell me bottles of like Gatorade. I think that one of them had some water bottles. One of them had, distinctly saw Gatorade, and I think I saw some soda bottles. And they walked right up to my car. And I was like, get off my car, man. Like remember the squeegee men in New York City? Everybody knew about the squeegee men. People hated that. And they would pressure you. And so anyway, I kind of waved them off. I was like, no, I'm not going to open my window to you. And then
Mm-hmm.
a piece came out in the Times Union a couple days ago showing the same issue. Migrants clustered around someone's car, like as though they're looking for day work. Um, I've traveled the world. I've actually traveled to Asian countries. I've traveled in African countries. And that's what it's like there. When you are a white person, an American specifically, traveling in these countries, people crowd around you. They demand or beg money. They take advantage of your car, kind of like the squeegee men. They just presume they can do it, and then they pressure you for money. We've had our car rocked back and forth, demanding. And so when I saw that picture in the Times Union at the Home Depot in Albany, I mean, I was like, this is like a third world country. I can say that with firsthand experience because I have been harassed in third world countries as an American. And now here I am in the United States of America, in this capital of New York State. And I've got people coming up to my car. I really was like, this is horrendous. And so the changes, it was never like that in Albany. As a woman, it feels unsafe. As a resident in Albany, it feels unsafe. The candidates who have been running for office keep getting asked, is Albany safe? As a sanctuary city, for regardless of like standard American crime in a city, now we have crime and behaviors from other countries here without any recourse for the average American who's just trying to live their lives in this city. If anything has changed, Cynthia, I would say the feeling of permission that someone else has, especially the immigrants, they're bringing third world behaviors into a city where I live and my kids go and we do business. It's unacceptable to me But Kathy Sheehan has made it acceptable, and she's forced this down our throats to endure it, to scramble away from it. I hate that. I can't do any. I, like everybody else, I feel helpless. There's nothing I can do. I ran for mayor to try and be part of the solution, but we are victimized daily financially by providing for people like this. We're victimized in a sociological level where people are harassing you and it makes you feel unsafe. We're victimized economically because they want jobs. They're degrading the way the city looks and the way people behave. I'm assuming I'm not alone here. In fact, I know that I'm not alone. If even the Times Union is reporting on it, and it really doesn't get any more left locally, and the fact that they're noticing it, it shows that it's even they're filtering it through their lefty perspectives. Oh, they're seeing it. That's what the article is really about. They see it too.
Mm-hmm. So, how much has the Times Union reported on this issue?
Not nearly enough.
Okay.
Not nearly enough. The fact that that article kind of made some rounds locally, the fact that that article even came out was kind of a big deal because, like I said, they go out of their way to distance themselves from negative Democrat PR, where common sense people can see with their own eyes. We can understand things that we hear. We perceive things that our brains are acknowledging. We all see it. They really try to reframe it in light of kind of being like, oh, you got to be like a humanitarian and these people are suffering. That is not what any of this is about. The United States does a lot for people who are suffering, but letting them in this way is now coming to the point where lefty Democrats cannot ignore it. And so they should be reporting more on it. They should be telling, instead of telling the immigrant stories, they should be honoring the people that say subscribe to them. They should be telling the stories of the men and women walking the streets of Albany, and they are many. If you look at like local underground news, like even social media, the stories are there. And you can look at the comments, and people are like, how come I didn't see this in the news? How come nobody's reporting on this? This is the problem. It's by design. And I've seen other people in the comments say things like, well, there's a lot to report on in the world. Okay, true. We must have priorities here. And the priority needs to be your paying subscribers, the American citizen, the residents in the area where you reach. What are our stories? The migrants are not the feature in the story. The reader, the subscriber, the resident, and under your reach, we are the story. And everything else, that's how journalism should be framed when you're local news. We are the story. What's happening to us? How do we feel about it? But that's not what they've been doing. So now it's becoming impossible to ignore. Why did it have to get to this point? Anyway, no one is really reporting on it with any true, with any clarity, truth, and perspective. They're not. They're trying to get away from it because it's that bad. When the Democrat reports on it, now you know it's bad.
Now I've lived in Albany now for 15 years, and I live right near a supermarket, 2 blocks away from a supermarket. It's a chain, but it's smaller than the other supermarkets in the area. So I went last week to get some coffee, and I had to use the public bathroom. And when I went to where the public bathroom is, it was closed off. And I asked the clerk, why is this? They said there's a bathroom upstairs. But all of a sudden the public bathroom's closed, and I'm wondering why this happened. And I don't know if I talked to you or somebody else that said because there's a lot more theft going on.
Yeah.
Would you say that was, I don't want to stereotype people, but would you say that it's because of the migrants coming into this country, into the city? I'm sorry.
Well, both. Well, stereotypes exist for a reason. nothing wrong with a stereotype. People use them every day to form statistics that we all rely on. They are there. So I have no problem with the stereotype, not to use it to abuse somebody, but we do use them to bring clarity and trace patterns in humanity. So stereotypes are okay. Whether or not it's because of the migrant crisis, I don't know. My primary guess would be that it's because of drug use. It's because of probably theft. I don't know that it is or isn't migrants. We certainly have our hands full in the city of Albany of plenty of theft, regardless of migrants. So it could be a migrant issue, but Albany is plagued by crime and theft. It's no different in any where I'm running for any of my assembly seat in the 109th. It's Guilderland. It's in Voorheesville. I just saw on the news this morning, Slingerlands was widely hit last night by a crime ring. And so it's everywhere in New York State where you have lawlessness, no upholding of law and order, the permission, that passive emotional permission to commit crimes, knowing that there aren't any real consequences. It's unfortunate because closing a bathroom, somebody who's handicapped or disabled, somebody who has a young child, somebody who's having a bathroom emergency, it happens. Somebody who struggles to get up a set of stairs for whatever reason, maybe it's age related. Now a bathroom is closed for, well, we can only guess at the reason, but I think we can make educated guesses as to why they are closing down bathrooms. I mean, come on, in a major store chain, it shouldn't be that way.
Right. Now, the reasons the reasons why this was initiated for because the Democratic Party wants more immigrants into this country. They're offered driver's license. When they go for driver's license, they're offering the voter registration forms. They're not even citizens, and they're being allowed to vote. Why is that? That to me, that's the most horror. That's going against the United States Constitution.
Yeah, well, who's going to do anything about it? That's really what the question is. These are gangland bully tactics, of course, by the Democrat Party to overtake elections. The level, it's a cheat. And people, what surprises me is that people are surprised by the cheat, because we saw this happen in multiple elections. We've seen cheating, and we still want to believe in the process of the American election system. However, at least on the Republican side, there's an awakening to the cheat in a way that they just could not acknowledge in 2020. And I'm not even talking presidential. That cheat wasn't just presidential, it was widespread. Now we're realizing the new tactic. Why wouldn't you flood the United States with people who, first of all, don't understand how the electoral process works? I can't tell you how many immigrants that I know who are not American citizens at this point, who think that just because you're registered in a certain party, you have to vote a certain way, because that's how it is in their countries. So why wouldn't you? If you know that, I know that, I've traveled the world. I know that there are countries where if you're registered as quote unquote Democrat, you have to vote Democrat, and they do track it. Well, we have a secret ballot here in the United States, which a lot of immigrants don't trust. Because they can't conceive of it, because it's not that way in their countries. You vote a certain way or you get punished. And so why wouldn't they flood the United States with people, give them free things, earn their loyalty, earn that vote, pressure them to vote in a way that they can't understand, because they don't really understand our American electoral system and the secret ballot, and they think you have to vote a certain way. Well, they're going to vote a certain way. They're going to show up and feel like they're real Americans because they get to vote. And I actually know a number of Republican non-citizens who would consider themselves to be Republicans if they could. They have that value system, and they can't vote. Isn't that interesting? isn't that interesting that the people who Republican, if they were American citizens, they can't get free voting cards. Why can't they register to vote? It seems like it's a Democrat thing. You don't see them signing up to be Republicans, illegal aliens doing it,
You
just
know,
Democrats.
you talk about Democrats versus Republicans, but the Republicans in Washington are not calling the Democrats out on this issue. They're allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
So to say, it might be Democrats versus Republican, it's my understanding that both parties have blood on their hands.
Well, when I'm talking about Democrats, Republicans on this issue, in the voting issue, it's not Republicans that are bringing in illegal immigrants and giving them the right to vote. That's definitely Democrats.
Yes, but the
Um,
Republicans are not speaking up about it in Washington, D.C. I
so
don't see that happening on a large scale thing where, you turn the news on and the commentators will report that such and such a congressman or such and such a senator spoke out about, the problems of illegal aliens coming into this
mhm,
this into the different municipalities and states. They say
yes, yeah.
nothing about it.
Well, okay, so let's look at Claudia Tenney. Um, she speaks out about that frequently. I've heard her do it, but who's reporting on it? That's what you have to look at. I'm positive she does because I've seen her and heard her, and she's in Congress. There are people doing it. There's just nobody reporting on it. Now, let's say like a Fox News, or for example, it is not their mainstay to focus on every single person that's doing it, but there are people. They're not going to get the press unless they do their own press. They are working on things. The problem is there are so many other fires right now that it ends up getting pushed along the wayside. In election integrity, there are huge movements about it. But I will agree with you to say I think not enough Republicans are taking it seriously. It's If you really let yourself think really about how bad this is, it's overwhelming. And I really think people like compartmentalize it. I think that if you really believe in the American system, especially like on the Republican side of things, I don't think, and I know that I've seen Republicans live in this sort of denialism that it is as bad as we're hearing in kind of channels we get pushed off to, like the alt right or the extreme right or something. It's not extreme right. It's happening everywhere. And why aren't more people stepping up? Plenty of people are, but more should. I agree with you there. And don't underestimate the level of rhinos in Congress. There's that too. There are a lot of Republicans who are just in name only, and they're part of the problem. That's worth considering as well.
Let's look at the issue of jobs right now. A lot of the illegal migrants are taking away jobs from natural born citizens or citizens that have come here the way the Constitution was written. So the they're trying to depress wages by increasing the number of people vying for jobs, and the honest everyday worker is being shit on because of it.
I had to mute for 1 second. Sorry, Cynthia. I had to turn my air conditioning on. It's really hot here.
So what do you say about that?
Cynthia, yes. So one of the things that you and I have in common is that we're just common sense people. I mean, you're for being on different party lines. Look how much we have in common.
Right.
And this human experience issue, the average person is the one suffering. Yes, But here's the problem. As I campaign around, people are, first of all, very demoralized. They really feel a sense of hopelessness that things are going to change. And that's very powerful. Hope and the loss of hope are extremely powerful sensations inside of a person, and they cause us to take action or to like hunker down into survival mode. So perhaps you and I are more on the fighter side of things, like we're willing to fight and get involved and make a difference. If the average person were willing to do that in larger numbers, we would overtake. But the loss of hope, it takes your energy out of you to do anything other than survive. People are trying to survive economically. People are trying to survive emotionally. People are trying to survive politically. People are trying to survive in their friendships, especially where you have these divided political lines. So in politics, people have really succumbed to the idea that they are helpless instead of rallying around the idea that we actually have, in enough numbers, permission to overthrow our government and reinstitute better representatives. I mean, that's a pretty extreme movement, but it's built into our Constitution for a reason. But the numbers aren't there to make that happen. People are just, the cost is too high. When you put people into survival mode, they're not going to have the energy to fight, to stand, to speak up, to get involved. They don't. They're trying to put food on the table. They're trying to be safe walking down the street. Who has time for anything else when you are living in your bare basic mode?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you see if this persists? What's going to happen to Albany? What's going to happen to New York State? And what's going to happen to the other countries where people who come here illegally? And one other issue that I want to talk about is the fentanyl issue. Drugs are coming into this country in massive numbers, and it's hurting the average person. You know, older people watch their kids get hooked on fentanyl. They kids die, maybe grown-ups die, and it's a plague.
Yes.
Between people who aren't citizens of voting, taking jobs away from citizens in this country, and the fentanyl crisis. Together, that's a bombshell. That's a bombshell. It's waiting to absolutely explode, and it's gonna explode. And I just fear for what might happen. You're a lot younger than me, and when I look back at when I was younger, there was such a thing as upward mobility. American citizens who graduated from college, who had a degree, they knew that if they worked hard, they might get ahead economically and financially. I don't think that's the case anymore. So, I feel as if I'm in the twilight of my years, and I wouldn't want to be young again to face what's going on now. That's how bad it is.
Well, there's a saying kind of out in the world that talks about good times produce weak men and hard times produce strong men. And we may have to hit that point. And I don't just mean men as in like the male gender, mankind. Hard times really do reveal the inner of a person. Are you a survivor? Are you going to succumb? We saw that in the pandemic. People who stood, people who fell. And I don't mean fell from COVID. I meant like fell emotionally or collapsed into the system. And not just about vaccinations. about the way that it all unfolded and allowing government access into our lives and those kind of things. But people emerged from that season like, okay, that is not going to happen to me again. Because these times of adversity, they reveal your inner self. And hopefully, I'm hoping, yes, we're suffering right now in a lot of ways. And I don't know how far that road will go, from people who will not stand, people who are easily silenced, people who are afraid of the loss, social loss. Social media has given us a false sense of reality of what it's really like out there. You invite strangers to have an opinion on your life. And then it affects your psychology, affects your emotional balance. And so I have hope. I remember I'm a big fan of Rush Limbaugh, always have been. I'm in radio and TV, and I'm a Rush baby. I was raised listening to Rush Limbaugh. And one of the things Rush always said was, I will let you know when it's time to panic, and it's not time to panic yet. And he said it all the time, regardless of how bad the world was. And so I say the same thing. It's not time to panic yet. There are people, now maybe it's not as easily seen because it's not reported in the media, but there are people, even in New York State, even in the city of Albany, throughout the capital region, there are people, and I don't mean in small numbers. At this point, they have been silent because they want the government left out of their lives. However, there are people who are armed. There are people who are knowledgeable. There are people who are strong in the Constitution. There are people who are raising up their children on their own through the homeschool system or the private school system to not be part of the establishment, who will not succumb to the way that things are going that are upsetting and distressing us all. So when that day comes that we do need people, there are people. However, how far we have to go, I don't know. How much we have to suffer, I don't know. How much we get pushed around, I don't know. How much crime we're going to have to tolerate before somebody somewhere in enough numbers finally says, we're done, I don't know. These elections, especially like in the city of Albany, what is ultimately going to happen if we don't change this trajectory? We're just going to go the way of Portland. We're going to go the way of San Francisco. We're going to go the way of tent cities. And we're going to go the way of, needles on the ground, the drug addicts. If you've seen Philadelphia, people bent over in half, drooling all over the streets, people's sons and daughters suffering from this epidemic of drugs flooding our country through the southern border. Look, I don't know if you know this about me, but in 2016, I was a registered independent and I was a never Trumper, actually. I was a major never Trumper. And I actually forgot, because I was going through some old social media posts recently. I was laughing at myself for the number of hateful Trump things that I had posted. I was laughing because now I'm like, build that wall. So I have seen right, wrong, or indifferent. Donald Trump's not my pastor. He's not my father. He's not my husband. He's a president. And if he can build that wall and create border security for us, if he can discipline and bring consequences to the migrants who have been flooding this country, if he can get them out and start to restore law and order, he doesn't have to do anything new. He just has to uphold law and order that's already in place in the United States system. If he's going to protect the Supreme Court from expansion, okay, I'm voting for Donald Trump. I'm not ashamed of that. People have pushed me around all this time. I'm running for assembly and saying, oh, you got to distance yourself from the Republican Party. You got to get away from Donald Trump. I was like, I'm running to Donald Trump because he's the only person, other than what we've got going on right now, who has a vision to restore what we have that makes us uniquely American. He's going to protect our borders. Okay. He's going to deal with these people that are bringing these drugs in through pipelines. Okay. He's going to help us become energy independent. Okay. I'm okay with all of those things, and I'm not ashamed of it. I am proud of it. And not just that, I'm willing to be part of the uncomfortable conversation because I care about the United States of America. I care about Albany, New York. I love the state of New York, and it's worth fighting for and getting involved in. I am not ashamed to be somebody who is pro-America, because all the things that you just listed, we are all suffering from, and that needs to stop. But we need greater help than ourselves. And it starts with a president And it's going to trickle down from there. Who has an understanding of what makes America great.
So,
Okay.
so, 3 years ago, you ran for mayor. This year, you're running for the state assembly. In the course of your conversation with potential voters, do they talk at all about this particular crisis to you?
Actually, you mean the fentanyl crisis specifically?
Yeah, the fentanyl crisis, you know, the migrant crisis in general.
Yeah, the migrant crisis, yes. Fentanyl, actually, no. Like I said, especially in the 109th district, you don't see it quite as much in the city of Albany. You do, but in the broader district, fentanyl is not on the top of people's minds. But the migrant crisis is because of the way that it looks expanded. So let's look at housing real quick. It's great to have housing for people that are unhoused and need help, but up in Guilderland, they're looking at proposals to put in not high rises, but like apartment complexes. And the state law says 20% of it has to be for like low income people. And that right there is an issue. But the reason why we have part of the reason we have a housing crisis is because we have such a high degree of immigrants who need a place to live. So they're dumping American citizens, or they're trying to find housing. Now they're pressuring the suburbs, which are like a bedrock of the success of an economy. You need the suburbs. They're shoving them, people are pushing further and further out into these spaces. And it's a complicated issue, but if I had to pick a side, I would say no. If I had to make it a black and white issue, which it's not, I would say no. We're not going to expand. The migrants need to go. And the New Yorker needs to be put first. We need to put New York first again. Those conversations do come up because Voorheesville doesn't want it. Guilderland doesn't want it. And a little bit outside of my district, Bethlehem. Now, it looks like they want it because they're becoming run by liberals. And they're the ones pushing all this stuff. But the average resident, they don't want it. Not at all. But it's going to happen outside of their control because they didn't get involved.
Mm-hmm. So, Alicia, we'll talk again as
All right.
this whole drama.
So much we can say.
So, you're running for the New York State Assembly. If somebody wants to help you with your campaign, give out your contact information.
Yeah, come find me at electaliciapurdy.com. That's the first place to go. I am the most active actually on my social media on Facebook. You can go to Facebook and type in Alicia Purdy for NYS Assembly. You'll find me there as well. That's the best place to contact me is actually on Facebook using Messenger. I'm just the most active over there because I have a large audience there. And then any donation links are also there. So on Elect Alicia Purdy, right at the top, there's a donation. And hey, money plays a role here. So do people. Want a lawn sign, any of that, come and find me. It all helps. The visibility is really important because even Democrats are looking for a different choice. We've got like a extremist working family socialist obedient sycophant that's running against me. And that's it. Those are the only two choices. Vote for your life. That's what I'm telling everybody in this election. Vote for your life. So come find me, electaliciapurdy.com, or over on Facebook, Alicia Purdy for New York State Assembly.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia.
You've been listening to Alicia Purdy, and I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Issues That Matter. So if you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you, Alicia. Thanks
Cynthia.
everybody for listening. Have a great day.